Hello, George.
Hello.
How are you doing?
How are you? Oh, I'm good.
I'm good as well, thank you. And everyone, welcome to this top 8 battle-hardened Kano list. With me today is George Douglas, Scotland's favourite and least favourite Kano player at the same time. You took Kano to a top 8 finish at battle-hardened Liverpool. You've been playing Kano for, what, since it came out now, or...?
Since I started, which would be Monarch.
Okay, that's pretty much when everyone started. So that may as well be when Kano came out, right?
I mean, basically, yeah.
And you've been playing Kano throughout ProQuest and RTN season, and you've had a few top finishes there as well.
Yeah, made a few top 8s. Not won anything yet, but we'll get there.
It's tactical though, right? You don't Kano to win, because when Kano starts winning, everyone goes, ban some things. So you're kind of just making... What you're doing is making everyone in Swiss hate their life. And then top cut, you're bowing out respectfully because you've had your fun.
Spike something important, That's the plan.
Okay. I like that plan. It's quite good. But yeah, so today we'll go through your top 8 battle-hardened list and kind of go through some of the weird choices that you had, or maybe kind of non-fundamental, if that's the word. I don't know. Because it's Kano, I feel like I have to say weird things, Fancy things.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big problem is that generally he hasn't changed very much. So, for the most part, most people will look at a deck list and be like, it's the same as it was last year and the year before. I definitely think there were some at the time, silly choices that were more reflective of a local scene than a battle-hardened plan.
Yeah, a few kind of grudge cards put in there, targeted for one person, and then you kind of just carried it all the way to the top 8 finish regardless. I guess we start off with the equipment. Is there anything here that you would like to discuss with regards to this loadout?
Yeah, I mean, all of it was very much what Kano's always have been bringing since they get those cards.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I think the spiciest thing would have been that threadbare tunic. I think at the time most people were still using Spellfire Cloak, and it was more of a sort of slow group accepting the idea that being able to get one resource in your own turn is good. And even though it's a little bit more complicated to use, if you just think about it in your plan, you learn how to use Threadbare Tunic, and it's not really a problem at that point.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's got the Kano kind of cards, the Crucible, the Metacarpus, Stormstriders, never forget them.
Yeah.
And Ragamuffin. It's very, very kind of a core Kano identity, I think.
It is funny when just a rubbish piece of equipment is actually, a very key combo.
I think 90% of decks would look at that and, I think, rightly dismiss it, but when you're playing off the top of your deck, all of a sudden it's just like, cool. Turn a red into a blue and play the red that you just put there.
The meme where it's like a really good picture of a horse on one side, and as you go further and further away, it gets worse and worse. That's kind of like Kano kind of flipping up his equipment for a game.
Yeah. You start with your legendary boots and your majestic gloves, and then a common chest piece and a common hat, and you're just... Yeah.
We'll move on to the main deck. That first line looks pretty standard, I guess. Wildfire doesn't need any talking about, really. Is that always the card you want to Arsenal, or is there something else you want to Arsenal?
Realistically, you probably want Wildfire in the Arsenal, but the Kano combo can work wherever you get it. You can Arsenal the Blazing, the Spindle, the Lessons in Lava. Those two are sort of maybe what I think people would consider the conventional sort of connecting cards, the one that goes Wildfire X Blazing.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't really matter which one you have in your hand, which one you have in the deck. If you've got the Blazing in the deck and the Wildfire in hand, you just need some damage off the top, and it's a bit kind of general, but I think I prefer the maths when it's Wildfire and Arsenal, but it doesn't really matter.
Okay. And so I'm looking at the second row here. Everything seems normal until we get down to your inventory. So I think there's probably a few cards in here that, well, I hadn't seen actually until I looked at this list. Shall we start by talking about Aether Quickening? So you're playing 2 red copies of this.
Yeah, Quickening, it's the slightly fancier version of Scalding Rain, and 1/4 is a nice number of arcane damage. You can kind of play it quite comfortably, and if they are quite arrogant, maybe they let you hit 5, tend not to, but, you know, the worst it is 2 damage, and you take a blue out their hand, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just generally a card that sort of they risk a lot by not respecting to AB any of it.
Okay. Is that because of the threat of go again, or just because it's quite a lot of damage and it just brings you closer to your combo kill?
Probably both. You know, taking 5 damage from Kano at any time can be a bit of a risk.
Yeah.
I have won games off of people not respecting the go again on Aether Quickening. You hit them for 5, and then you just throw the blazing at them that you had. That's another 5.
I'm guessing there's a few people.
You're playing from the same place I was starting at.
Yeah.
At that point, you've taken 10 for kind of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, I think it's probably the bigger threat is the risk of go again. People sometimes underestimate, like, oh, it's just a card in Arsenal, what can that be?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, maybe it's a Tome of Aetherwind and I'm going to draw my combo piece to set up for next turn now, or something like that.
Yeah. Who'd have thought that Go Again was broken even in Kano? And there's probably, 5 people in the UK who are going around being like, I lost to Kano 1 time because I gave that card Go Again. So you're giving someone a good story. Cindering Foresight is the next one you've got here. It's 2 copies of it in red. This one to me seems to make a bit more sense at first sight. It's kind of like a mini Aether Wildfire in a way, but it adds a bit of consistency. But you're the Kano master, so tell me.
I think I see a lot of other Kanos really hate Cindering Foresight. I'm generally quite fond of it. I don't run it often. I tend to sort of just kind of weave back and forth on it.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, I was running it because there were quite a few Boltyns locally and a couple of Vinsets.
Mm-hmm.
And Shadow and Light can both run a good amount of Spell Void.
Yeah.
Which often turns that first combo kind of dead. And I found Cindering Foresight was a really nice card. If you could arsenal it and you draw that big hand of blues, you can throw it out and go and try and find another Wildfire or damage cards to string together a sort of second combo. And the +1's always nice. It's something I've forgotten a few times, and then suddenly I had to be like, oh, actually, Wildfire for 7, you know. But yeah, opting 3 again. Opting in Kano is so good. It's so strong when you can kind of determine what you're going to encounter with your hero power.
Next, we've got 2 yellow Mind Warp. This is a card I hadn't seen until you showed me this list.
My favorite art in the game. My absolute favorite art. Mind Warp's, it is a bit of a weird one. I'm not a huge fan of it. At least now having used it a bunch, I'm not a huge fan. It sort of sells as a anti-aggro card, sort of thing where you force them to block or they just lose a card anyway by shuffling their hand to bring 1 less. But because you can't really land more than a +1 outside of a combo, it doesn't do that much. Yeah, like that was probably one of the most experimental things I was mucking about with at Armories.
Mm-hmm.
Was just trying to say, yeah, you're on AB1, but you have to now pay 1 because you're going to lose a card anyway. But yeah, I think it generally it's not made the biggest waves in Kano lists.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably the best way to sum it up.
Okay, well I think there's kind of like a running joke where a lot of Kano players present 60 cards and then their sideboard is just absolute kind of junk that they're never going to play. So, I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any harm in trying it out, right? And then lastly, for the jank, as it were, we've got 3 blue Scours.
It targets a few people. I think it probably actually, now looking at like sort of progress season, it probably targets more and could come back.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen people talk about using it to try and wipe a cast bones. You know, they make their 6 token auras and you just get rid of them all.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah, I mean, if you can keep 3 cards, you know, I think that's probably the biggest challenge of keeping 2 blues and the Scour. I think at the time I was mostly running it, again, targeting local Viserai players, and I think one of the Boltyn players locally was using Banneret of Protection to make Spellbane Aegis tokens.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I felt a little targeted, so I figured I'd give some energy back, and it was mostly just to like wipe away rune chants.
Do you think this has any applications with the new illusionist that's coming out, given that she will be, it seems to be mostly Spectral Shield kind of generating focused?
Yeah. I think there could be. I think with all the Spectral Shields, and I imagine most illusionists will probably always run the Everfest blue auras, which are all 0 cost. Or at least a good portion of them. And I haven't looked at maybe what people are looking at, but I imagine there are probably some more of these ward auras that cost 0, and they're all on the plate with Scour. So I think, you know, in Kano, any blue wizard 3 block can sort of side out with another one. So who knows? Maybe I just knock Bolt out and stick that in. You know, most of the time you block with them anyway, or pitch them away. And once in a while you'll get to cut all of the Spectral Shields mid-attack or something, you know, that's always nice. Take away, they go again.
That is the battle-hardened list. Do you want to give us, I know it was a while ago, but do you want to give us a quick run-through of the matchups they had in the battle-hardened, kind of maybe some key points in the game, a few things that maybe won you the game, lost you the game, that sort of thing?
Sure, yeah. So I went 6-3 in total. It was, my first round was a Prism. I think I got to choose to go first, which is what you kind of want. You want to push some damage on them, and it's a real bad matchup. I did manage to win, kind of surprising, but it was, I think, largely based off of my opponent's maybe not quite understanding what he should do. I believe at one point he hard cast a Figment of Judgment from hand, trying to banish a Blazing Aether I'd put into the banish zone, and I just responded by casting it for the 3 damage it was going to hit with, and then Waning Moon after the fact. But it meant he couldn't block any of it from hand, just as it happened. And yeah, from there, in that case, it was the very rare kind of win, where I just managed to push damage real fast, and then get 2 wildfires off in 1 turn, flip the angel, you pop it with Waning Moon, and then sort of, you know, once your spells are plus 11 for the turn, anything off the top that is a spell that does damage is probably going to kill someone who starts at 32. Next, then I had a Levia, and this was one where actually there was a few factors I think that won me it, because I believe he rolled a few 1s on them scab skins, which I won't pretend came in handy. But he saw a lot of his blues very early on, so I pushed very little damage before trying to, or kind of being pressured to combo on a Blood Rush turn. And it was only because after his Blood Rush turn, he played his second Blood Rush, as all brutes do, you know, back to back. And I hit a Cindering Foresight off the top, got rid of 3 blues and hit a Swell Tiding. I think it was Swell Tiding because it was the 5 damage or something. And with the +1 from that, the +1 from my Crucible, and the +1 from Metacups that I hadn't used, meant that he could block 3 and he would still die. So, rewarded for running Jank.
Yeah, Cindering Foresight.
Not really just
that,
but, you know. I believe after that I had a Viserai, which was the second big Jank reward. He was on an OTK build. So it was very much, build up all his rune chance and then punch you for 40-something damage or whatever. He didn't have a lot of AB. I distinctly remember, I think he had like 1 on a piece, and he was just running like regular stuff otherwise for like blocking and whatever. A lot of defense reactions he had to leave in the deck, and that was a game, I think that was just kind of a rush down. If I remember, it was me just throwing big damage at him as fast as I could, but I caught him twice with Scour. He built up his rune chance, and then twice I just went and slapped him away. I think the first time there was a quite slightly awkward moment of him sort of misinterpreting how Scour worked, and I had to explain that the rune chants are gone, and then you take the 6 damage. It's not pay 6 or lose the rune chants. But yeah, it was quite a simple one, just no real, I think he clearly hadn't planned to dodge Kano. Then after that was a Bravo, and normally Bravo is considered a bit of a free win for Kano, but I, at the time, was not running anything for stacking, not really even trying to stack, and I got caught with multiple pommels. I take no shame, it was Michael Feng,
Okay.
I'll accept that loss, more than fine. But yeah, that was one of those ones where I think for a while at the time, I just think every Bravo I encountered, it was back-to-back go-again attacks, and then when it wasn't a go-again attack, it was a pommel or something, and not running defense reactions gives them a real chance of winning, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, very simple.
So it sounds like at this point you're winning the matchups that you shouldn't have won. You're losing the ones that you should have won.
It kind of odd. I guess I was kind of flipping the table a little bit. I think after that I had a Kassai who presented, I think, AB1 as well, and was, I think, maybe the 3rd matchup I'd heard of the day where it was just, I was trying to dodge Kano. They told me he wasn't real. After that, I think was probably the luckiest thing that happened that weekend, where I was paired up against a Dromai.
Ah, yes.
And we got deck checked. And I have a wee bit of a history of failing. In the first Road to Nationals I attended, I failed 2 deck checks at 2 separate RTNs, I should clarify.
In top 8 as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
And losing for that, really. It's kind of hard to play. At the time, I think it was Azuri I was playing. Losing on Azuri because you've got 3 cards against Alexi or someone like that.
Yeah.
Kind of expected it.
So it was.
But this time, I didn't fail.
Sorry, what you forgot was, so you had Remembrance left out. You forgot to write Remembrance in one deck list.
I had on the first one, I had 79 cards written on my deck list. I forgot to write down Remembrance, and I looked at my deck list and just went, it'll come out in the wash. Like, I'm sure it'll be fine. Yeah.
And then the other one was...
That thought process went.
Yeah.
And the other one was after that, it was the week after, and I had done just some very quick sort of spicy practice. I think it was Francesco's build, which was kind of a pummel Zuri, focusing on kind of, it was a bit of a win more kind of list of like, cool, I'm hitting you for 6, I'm taking 1 card, but fuck it, pummel, I'll take another. But that time, I had an extra copy of Wheel Blade in my list. A much more legitimate misplay. Fitting. I think I had 3 in the deck. I only had 2 on the paper. So yeah.
You failed to spot a concealed blade.
Wee bit of a history with IP2s. But this time, all clean. I'm a reformed man. I was lucky, very lucky, I think, because to my understanding, my opponent was a very confident Dromai player, who actually got a game loss for having 2 illusionist decks in the same box with the same sleeves, and due to the amount of crossover between those decks with the generic illusionist pieces. After that, there was a Tree Frog Dash. Normally, I think for most Kanos, when you see Dash, it is quite worrying. They can churn out a lot of damage, and they can comfortably sit on AV3 and probably pay for it for the most part. But this one was AB0, and I don't think it wasn't until I think for the second turn in a row he just presented blue attacks. I sort of started realizing that, oh wait, yeah, he doesn't have AB. I was very confused. I thought oh man, he must be drawing terribly. But yeah, that was also very free. So the last round for the Swiss was another Prism. It was actually Rob Catton who went on to win the whole thing. So again, I don't feel any shame.
Yeah.
And this time the Prism player held onto his Halo until it was worth spell voiding damage. And just sent heralds, because the reality, Kano can't really block heralds forever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I went into the top 8 in 8th position, and I was paired up against a Boltyn, who a few people reacted when I lost, and I realized again it's another matchup that you stack. It's another matchup where if I brought maybe a sensible Kano deck, I would have had a chance to play. It would have been more of a game. But it was very much a sort of trying to find my combo as fast as possible, and then just playing a very bad combo that he didn't care about, didn't threaten him genuinely. And that was the Battle Harden. Yeah, I'll take it. I'll take 8th. It was all good.
You have been playing Kano since then, for the RTN and kind of ProQuest season. And yeah, there's a few changes. You have, it seems, started playing the defense reaction package. Fate Foreseen seems to be it seems like a natural inclusion for what you want to do as well, right? Because you get to block, so you save your life, but you're also opting one at the same time, so you're helping yourself hit your pitch stack faster, or make sure you got something good on top that you can use.
Yeah. Some people stick yellow sinks in. I've seen a few lists with that, and that makes a lot of sense because you can use it to protect combo cards. If you've got a hand with a Blazing and a Wildfire, and you've already lost one of your Blazings or something, you can afford to go, sink for a 5th time and put a Blazing away and draw something to just throw away in a block or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think I just valued the extra 1 health. And opting, it's another 1 down on the deck, on the pile, so you get to that pitch stack a bit faster. Or maybe you see something spicy on top and you take a chance just to throw it back at them and hopefully get them to sort of stifle their turn with a bit of AB blocking.
We've got a new card as well. Well, not new, but you didn't have it in your other list. The blue Voltic Bolts. Is that just for more damage? Is it because the format's maybe a bit slower now as well?
I think on my previous list, I was running 30 blues, which is, I think, widely considered a little low. And I was definitely, I think, feeling it. A lot of games, you sit and you look at your hands, and I'd be feeling how am I supposed to play this turn out? I've got 3 reds or something like that.
Yeah.
And it really sucks after the 100th time of drawing that on your vital last combo turn. So I think I stuck those in to bump them up. I said previously, really any blue 3-block could do. You want it to be Wizard just to reduce how many other cards get impacted by it. Sonic Boom, for example, only hits Wizard non-attack actions. And, if you hit a Voltic Bolt off the top, it's 3 damage on its own.
Is there anything else in the list that you'd like to talk about at all?
As much as I would love to be able to go back to playing Jank, I think after the ProQuest season, I have come to appreciate a bit more of a reliable approach to Kano.
So, new Kano cards, what are your thoughts?
I will say that I started out as a real hater. Having seen a few people walk through lines and strategies, I'm beginning to believe. I'm slightly getting over my initial hesitation. Getting over that initial sort of feeling of repulsion. And not revulsion, but, I definitely felt like kind of pushed away from it by it being an instant, which means it breaks the top of your deck. But speaking with a few of the other Kanos in Scotland and seeing some of the kind of worldwide conversation about it, I'm hopeful. I'll try to be a bit more reserved, but I think it could push. I don't think it changes Kano. He still plays very much the same, but I think it might just sort of bump the cap up of sort of surprise combos doing a bit more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to be careful, because if you go on because this is on record, so if you come and say this card sucks, I hate it, and Kano starts winning everything with this card, you're gonna look real bad.
I'm gonna say I have a terrible record of recognizing card value. I sat there hating Aether Arc because it's just a zap, and I'm like, actually it is a good bit better than a zap. I'll have to accept that.
Fair enough. Well, I think that concludes everything we had to talk about here. I thank you very much for your time, George, and hope you had a good time talking about Kano. Who doesn't love hearing about Kano, right?
Oh, I'm sure everyone loves listening to an 8th place Kano brag about 10% luck.
Consistently 8th place though. Consistently between 4th and 8th.
Just a few more, and I think I can put it down on like a CV or something.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Thank you everyone for watching, and hope you have a good day.
Yeah.
Especially you, George. You're a star.